So you've decided to homeschool and you're finally at the time and the age when everything is coming together. It just feels right. You have your curriculum, you have your sweet little 5 or 6 year old who is ready to go on this learning journey with you. And you also have a 2 year old, a newborn, a breastfeeding infant, other children who need your attention, your support. I have heard it said so many times that prior to age 10, there's always, like every few minutes, some need that's going to come up for the mother who has children under age 10. And it's so true. And so as moms, we're constantly learning and adapting and figuring out how do we meet the needs of these little people while still getting done things that must be done, right? So today I'm going to talk with you and share some ideas about what we as homeschooling mothers can do to serve and meet the needs of our youngest ones, in addition to homeschooling our older children at the same time. Stay tuned.
Just do your thing. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.
Hi, I'm Sarah Ruth here at Togetherness, where we share all things faith-filled homemaking, faith-filled adventures, and faith-filled learning. Today, we're going to take some time and explore some ideas about home educating a child or a couple of children with a little one underfoot. Before we get started, I want to ask you to please go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Hopefully, you will find here things that you want to come back to, or things you want to engage with, or just something you want to refresh yourself with later. So give it a subscribe for our channel now. That way you'll be notified when we put up new videos or something that may interest you. Also, if you would go ahead and like this video, you can unlike it if you hate it at the end. I would so appreciate that like. This just tells YouTube that I am not talking to myself. All right. We welcome your comments. I try to get to all of the comments in a reasonable amount of time. I try to respond and answer and engage with you because I think that what I'm doing is worth investing in, and I'm not going to leave you hanging. If you have a specific question, you're always welcome to start a conversation, to challenge something that I share in a kind of respectful way, or to engage with other commenters. I love seeing that we can all learn from one another. So today's topic is one that I'm consistently asked about, and I specifically chose to do it here in our sunroom. It is my favorite room in our home. First my favorite room, and then my second favorite room is where we do a lot of our lessons now in our breakfast room in the mornings. But this room is well lit. As you can see, I have slowly accumulated low shelving in this room. And it's for a reason. It's actually because I use this space as a playroom, and it's developed over the years. But initially, when I first started formal lessons with my eldest, this was where we did all of our school. And there is a craft table in here. You can't really see it right now. I've done some videos of this craft table. There it is. We did crafts and board games there, and in the past that table was our lesson table. So if we needed a table or a surface to sit at, that's where we would sit. And then there are some low-lying shelves beside me, as well as more towards the back of the room. I was really fortunate to inherit this beautiful shelf, and then the shelves at the back of the room that are low, I found it in a estate sale for an insane price. It was just a wonderful deal. I was so blessed. So I've set up this space to be self-contained, which means I have doors that I can, if you look over here at the squirrel, that was my grandmother's, that is our door holder. It is holding up the French doors that lead into the rest of our home. And so when I had littles underfoot that really needed a lot of my support and attention constantly, we would come in here when we were ready for lessons. I would bring a little snack and some kind of special drink, and we would just hunker down in here, and I would give my eldest son what he needed while still being able to meet the needs of my littles and know where they were. So I realize not every home has this ability. Maybe it's not going to be quite as aesthetically pleasing. This is like one of the only aesthetically pleasing places in my home. We live in a fixer-upper, so there are reasons why I don't show you other parts of my house, why you only get views of certain spaces. But essentially, one suggestion I have, one tip I have is, if you have the capacity, if there's a way, create a space that you go to for indoor lessons that has everything you need there. Either get a basket or a rolling cart so that you can bring the things you need in, or keep them there, or carry them there, whatever it is. Make sure there's a table or a surface for the learning child to be able to write or do whatever they might need to do at a table. And then find a way to contain it. Find a way to enclose it so that a baby or younger child is safe and you can have eyes on them and monitor them, without having to go chase and check on them constantly or them be in some kind of dangerous situation. So that's one of my first tips. The part that kind of goes along with that is that I had my boys in just under 4 years. So when I started formal learning with my 6-year-old, at that time, I also had a 4-year-old and I had a 2-year-old. And essentially, the 2-year-old really needed a lot for me. He was still nursing. We did extended breastfeeding. And, he was still high need. And then even my 4-year-old. Now, my 4-year-old wanted to participate and really enjoyed being in the space that we were in. He loved the books we were reading, and it was really easy to include him in a lot of it without requiring anything of him, but just because he had that innate desire and the intellect to understand so much of what we were doing. And so that worked out beautifully. However, here we were in this space and we would close ourselves in here, and I had a couple sensory bins and a few toys that were kept up and away and contained either with a lid or up on a shelf that only came out during our learning time. So during the 20-minute lesson where I needed my eldest son's complete attention and I needed to not be disturbed unless it was an emergency, I would pull this out, and it would be so interesting to my youngest because it wasn't something he had constant access to. And I think that's a real key to getting some of those times to, be able to work with another child, is that you've got to have the other children's interest. And one of the ways to do that is by putting away certain things or bringing out certain things at certain times only. So that's one big tip that I have. Another thing is, and people have joked in the past, because we spend so much time outside, but I just have to confess that as a mother of 3 very young boys, and we're just coming into middle childhood now, and the true bulk where all 3 of mine are actually in their prime childhood years and are kind of able to have a longer than 5-minute attention span. And they're so active, and for us, being outside all the time just made life easier. And so that's why we were. And when I first started lessons with my eldest, we absolutely went and did school outside as often as possible. I found parks and hiking trails and whatever that were conducive for keeping my young children entertained. And then I would grab, a 20-minute lesson with my 6-year-old, a 20-minute lesson. So we did that as often as possible. And I would encourage you, being outdoors is so good for everybody. It is good for the mother. It is good for the children. If you can take your lessons outside safely and find spaces where your kids can play, maybe invite other families and let them know up front that you're going to be doing lessons with your oldest, but your other kids are able to play, or, a couple children are going to do lessons, but the other, preschool age children and toddlers can play. And, doing that in community is always a wonderful way to do it. We've done it for years and years, and it's worked really well for us. So speaking to, different dynamics where As my son got older, at some point we had 2 children doing formal learning and 1 child who was, 3 and then 4 and 5, but still not doing formal lessons and really wanting mom and really wanting to, be where we were, but not necessarily wanting to stay in like one room like this. I couldn't pen him in anymore, let's say at 4 or 5. However, I had to teach him that it was okay for him to play alone. And that really does start young. Like, I don't entertain my children. I just leave out things that they can play with. We have built, a group of open-ended toys and different things that mean my kids know how to entertain themselves. And I think there's a lot to be said for, we have this feeling that we must entertain our young children. And, we might need to just agree that we just say to our younger child, our 3 or 4 or 5-year-old, hey, this is your playtime. Go outside and enjoy the mud kitchen. Do this. Mommy will be available in 10 minutes, or mommy will ring the bell. We have a bell outside that has been really helpful. I'll ring it. Mommy will ring the bell when she's ready to spend some time with you doing something special. And that leads into another tip that I have. Another piece of advice for having multiple children who are being homeschooled and having 1 or 2 that, are younger and, kind of underfoot and want mom's attention too, is to dedicate specific time to them. So for me, it was in the early morning. Actually, my youngest was the first to get up for a long time and even still is. And we would have cuddles and I would read him 2 or 3 picture books and he would help me fix breakfast. And so by the time his brothers woke up and we were starting formal learning, his little love tank was so filled up and he was ready to go about his own business. In addition to that, I found that teaching my youngest some life skills at 3 and 4 and 5, things like brushing his teeth, how to get dressed, having some little chores for him. He is my dishwasher unloader and he's been doing that since he was 3 and a half. And he's very good at it and knows where everything in our kitchen goes. And he is so precious. He will hum and sing while he works and talk to himself. It's just one of my favorite things ever. He has such a good little way about him when he goes to busy himself with his little dishwasher task. So find life skills that you can teach your young children, your 3 to 5-year-olds, and teach them to them well. Do it with them several times. Help them do, watch them do it independently, praise, teach, refine, and then set them free to do it. And that will give you a 20-minute pocket. And I keep talking in terms of 20 minutes, but unless your kids are teenagers, which I assume by the time your children are teenagers, you're hoping they're more independent. Like I have a 5th grader now. He's 10 and a half. And actually, he does 95% of his school day independently. Now he may come to me and he has to narrate to me and he may have a question here or there and whatnot, but for the most part, he is an independent worker. So we're talking about, in these elementary years when you're having to teach a child to read or do a math lesson with a, 2nd grader, a 3rd grader, 4th grader, what are you doing with your toddlers? What are you doing with your infant? And that's why I'm speaking in terms of like 20 to 30 minute blocks, because that's all the time in our homeschool that we really need to do one lesson. And that's kind of how I planned out my days when my kids were younger was, for this 20 minutes, mommy expects you to go outside and play in your mud kitchen or to play with magna tiles or to do something. And I'm going to come give you a big hug and see what you have made when I finish this lesson with your brother. And then make sure not to get distracted and set your timer for that 20 minutes so you keep the lesson brief for that child in front of you. And then give that child a break because they're young and they need a break too. And go visit with your preschool child, with your toddler. So that way, they get their cup filled once again. So another thought that I have, and something I've done when I've had foster children in the home or little babies around while I was teaching, maybe I was babysitting or hosting a friend here at the house, is just baby wearing. It sounds so simple, but I feel like sometimes we forget in the craziness of life. I wore my children until they were 3 or 4 actually. Anytime we were on hiking trails, I had to bring my carrier. I always wound up carrying or tandem carrying somebody. But in those, prior to like 2, many children are perfectly fine being baby worn for several hours throughout the day. And if you really need time to focus on something and that baby wants to be near you, then baby wearing them may be the answer. And you can pat and love on that baby and talk to that baby, nurse that baby without having to get up and walk away. Now, I'm going to give you a tip that is not from me, but that I have seen given time and again. And I'm going to tell you why it's not for me, but I'm also going to provide it as a suggestion because I think different families function differently. And it's, this might be a great tip for a family that doesn't function the way we did. My kids slept with me. Even when they napped, I nursed them into their naps until they weaned. Even when I had a 4-year-old who was weaned, I laid with him until he fell asleep during nap time. So this did not work for us. But I have seen many families that I respect and friends of mine who have a nap schedule, who are a little more scheduled than our family is, who have used nap time for their baby or toddler as their school hour or two for their older children. And I do think that there's a value in thinking that through. If you're a family that has trained your younger child to nap on a certain schedule, then you may have a great block of time, an hour or 2 hours, in which you can do your home learning with your older child uninterrupted. And if you have that opportunity, take it. So while that didn't work for our family, because it wasn't like how our family flowed, I didn't really set a nap time for my kids. It was kind of more of a rhythm, like after we have lunch, after we do this is, we go to bed together, I read you a story, whatever. The other thing is, and this is also not necessarily like what worked in my home, but I would not say it's like a terrible thing to do, is if you use television in your home or TV shows and you have a preschool age child and you want to put on a 30-minute show for them, let that showtime be your time. Like, let that be the special time that they get. So make that their time on technology. Be like, this is the only time you're going to get today to watch your TV. So sit here and watch it and give them a little snack and go do your 20 or 30-minute lesson with your older child. Now, we have stricter rules on television. It didn't work in our house. But if I was more comfortable with TV, and that was something that I did in my family regularly, that would be a great way to get some uninterrupted time. So, families are all different, and I think we have to respect one another enough to say what has worked for me may work for your family, or there might be other things out there that may work better for your family. And I want to be a help to you. And there's no condemnation that your family isn't identical to mine. Instead, I just want to be able to give you ideas to kind of help you come up with a plan so that you're not exasperated or frustrated with your children, especially your little ones, or so that you don't feel like you're failing your older one because you want to do homeschooling with them. My last tip is going to be food. Use the times when your children are eating to do homeschool. So like from the very beginning, all of our school actually started with breakfast. We did family devotion and a worship time and usually some kind of read aloud or learning while my children were eating. And when our kids are eating, they're more still, they're more focused, and we just kind of set up a routine where they knew not to get up from the table, without asking to be excused. They had to wait on the learning time to finish, and I kept it developmentally appropriate. But even when you have little ones, it's so easy to put them in a high chair once they're old enough, or to be nursing them or whatever you usually do during a meal with that little one, and it keeps them better contained, and they were going to be at the table anyway, right? Furthermore, use snacks, and that was one of the ways that I brought my sons into this room in our earliest years of learning, was I would prepare a special snack tray and a special tea or a steamed milk, and I would bring it in here, and I would ring my little bell because I am just that weird person who loves bells, and I have a school bell and a dinner bell. It just works so well. I don't have to yell for anybody. They all know to come when they hear a bell. But I would bring that in, and it was like an invitation for everybody to come and get in this space together and that learning was going to happen, but everybody had, toys to play with and things to do, and mommy would be right there in case they needed anything. Now, no matter what you do, there will be interruptions. Even if you only have one child, the mailman will come, the neighbor will show up, the tree guy will stop by, the new people renting the Airbnb down the road will get lost and knock on your door. I promise it will happen. So you have to be prepared that no matter how prepared you are, no matter how many tricks are in your bag, no matter how many ways you know to occupy your young ones, there's going to be hangups, there's going to be interruptions. Pray. Pray in the mornings before you start your day. Take a deep breath prayer if you're getting exasperated, because these tiny moments where we're raising these little people and we're trying to get this school day done, these little moments are our days. This is our life. This is our legacy. And so come into it with the mindset, yes, I have prepared special activities or toys. I have this sensory bin set aside, or I have these magnet tiles that are put up. Yes, I have, filled my little toddler's love tank, but maybe that little toddler today is going to need some extra, and you're going to have to hold him the whole time that you're reading to your eldest, or, maybe you're going to have to ditch the plan and school's not going to happen today. These are the early years, friends. It's okay. If you're in the early years, it is okay to just have an off day and take everyone to the park, or to hit up Chick-fil-A, or whatever you need to do to keep your sanity and start over. Missing a day of school here and there when your kids are in first and second and third grade, it's not going to matter. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope that you went ahead and subscribed to our channel. It's so helpful and such a blessing to my family as we grow and we invest time in these things. And I hope that you liked this video. If you have questions about anything I shared, or if you have suggestions I didn't cover, I really hope you will put those in the comments section. All right. Goodbye. See you next time.